The opinions expressed on this program are solely those of its hosts, guests, or callers, and do not necessarily represent the opinions of WTBR-FM, its management, other producers, or sponsors.
Hi, everyone. You're listening to Backstory. Let's hear it on WTBR-FM Pittsfield with Roberta McCulloch-Dews of the Mayor's Office in the city of Pittsfield. Thanks for tuning in. So today we have with us Andy Cambi, the City of Pittsfield's Public Health Director, and we're going to learn more about his professional journey, which is really interesting, as well as his personal story, which is intriguing and inspiring. So welcome, Andy.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Excited to get to know each other.
You know, one of the things that I had just said to you is I said, you know, you're so quiet. Right. You know, see you around City Hall, and you're quiet, but you have such an interesting story, and I think it will resonate with many of our listeners today. So one of the first things that I want to talk about was, one, before we get into your background, your birthday, because you just recently celebrated a birthday. But you share your birthday with an occasion that many of us know on September 11th. How is that for you to have this date, knowing that it marks such a poignant time for so many?
Right. I mean, as soon as I tell people my birthday, their immediate reaction has always been like, well, that sucks. And, you know, I understand completely. You know, September 11th will forever be a day of mourning, a day of honoring the people that have lost their lives. So I completely understand that. And I just say, yeah, you know, it does suck. But, you know, I continue to just celebrate my birthday as things. But even for me, 9/11 will always be a day of sadness, but also a time of strength. That we moved on from.
Right. I mean, I can't believe so many years have passed. It's incredible to think about. But I think that's a meaningful way that you're able to sort of reconcile the two, right? A day of good celebration for you, but also for thought and reflection. Your story, getting into your background. So your family emigrated from Ecuador.
Correct. Yeah.
To the United States, and they settled in Queens. Which part of Queens?
In Corona and Astoria, Queens.
Okay, all right.
So they're all there still.
Really?
Yep, they all stayed there. So, you know, and it's all a lot of family. You know, a lot of uncles, a lot of aunts, and all of them. So, yeah, they're still there.
So do you go to Queens often?
I do.
You do?
I do, yep. I a couple of times a year, I head over, family parties. All the family parties are out there, and we do it big out there. So,
nice.
Yeah, I get an opportunity to go out there once in a while.
Nice. So my mom lived in Queens. She lived in Cambria Heights. So that was on the E line. What line do you know the train?
Train 7.
You're on the 7 line.
Flushing Meadows.
Yeah, Flushing Meadows, all of that. Yeah. So, wow, interesting. Yeah, it's always, when you see people going to Queens is huge, folks. So there's so many different parts of Queens. Wow, Corona, nice section. So in terms of your name, Andy, there's like a big secret because Andy really wasn't your real name. Well, no, it's your real name now, but what was your first name?
So the name that I was born with, and I was given, was Giovanni. And I had that name till around 4 and 5, and that's when the name was legally changed. I don't know the reasons why it was changed, but my mom just took it upon herself to change that name to Andy. And so I just remember I just briefly like walking around like these big buildings, and then I don't know if you remember, we used to have like these medical record books from New York State, and it was like a brown book, and all of a sudden she would give me this old book. It's like, this is the old book now your new name's Andy, and now you can just scribble on this book. And that's like the vivid memory that I have. And I wish I could remember more of like, okay, how do I identify now as Andy?
Right.
But yeah, I don't really know the reason for it. And she just said, I like the name Andy better. And so she changed that.
So do you recall calling yourself Giovanni?
No, but some of my family members still do.
They do?
Yeah, some of my family members still call me that, because as I mentioned, I grew up there, so they, for 4 years,
that's right,
knew me as Giovanni, and so they still see me as Giovanni.
So you're responsible.
Yeah. But mostly, yeah, it's Andy now. So, and also, it's just Andy. I get a lot of times, not Andrew. I'm like, no, it's just Andy. So
I got to ask you, if now that you're older, I mean, you have choice.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself as a Giovanni, or do you see yourself as an Andy?
Andy.
You do?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. Can't remember back to when it was Giovanni, but it's a cool name. I like it.
It's a really cool name. I'm looking at you now, and I'm thinking, okay,
yeah, could have been.
Could have been. All right, so. You know, your story, you have such, you know, the immigrant experience, you know, your family coming to the United States for a better life. What did your mom do when she was here, and your dad?
So my mom was a seamstress.
Okay.
So she came at the age of 14.
Okay.
And, you know, she thought she was going to start school, but unfortunately she just came by herself. So she had to start work like the next day, she tells us. So, you know, she's a seamstress as she was growing up. And then my dad was always in the restaurant business, so he was a cook throughout his lifetime.
So tell me about they were here. Your mom was here at 14. Was your dad also here as a teen?
Yes.
Okay. So they were able to almost like grow up here.
Right. Yeah. But they didn't get the education. They went right to work.
Right.
And then my mom had me around 16. So very young, and yeah.
Tell me about, in terms of, I mean, they were pretty young. So what do you remember what life was like when you were little?
It was hard. I just remember always running around with my mom. She had to just take me everywhere, you know, going to her job. She used to work at the factories. In those days, you know, they were packed, they were hot, and it was just very long days.
And you went with her?
Yeah, there were times that I had to go with her just because she couldn't find childcare.
Right.
So those are the memories I remember, just kind of going around the street, you know, walking to work, getting to work, and just sitting down and just watching her work and trying to keep myself entertained.
Was this also in Queens or Manhattan?
Queens.
Oh, Queens.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember anything from that in terms of like, was there a memory that stayed with you from just seeing your mom work so hard?
It's just remaining calm. You know, I like I said, I just had to be there, sitting next to her,
right,
and had to be quiet. You know,
right.
I couldn't be running around,
right,
screaming my head off, and I just had to be sitting quietly.
There was an understanding.
Yeah, there was an understanding.
Right.
So that's what I remember, just kind of observing and understanding that we're going to go to work.
So at some point, you're with your mom and you're living this experience, but then there was a point where you had to go back to Ecuador and you lived with your grandmother for a time.
Right.
Okay, so tell me about that.
Yeah, around 5, it was more difficult for her to continue finding childcare. So, you know, she sent me to Ecuador to live with my grandma for about 2 years. And so, you know, I just went with it. At that point, I didn't really understand it. So I just went along with it. And it was very challenging for her. But at the same time, I do appreciate that opportunity that I got to be there in Ecuador.
So I have to imagine, I mean, you're 5 years old, so you're very close to at 5, you're very close to your parents, right? So you know that your little suitcase is being packed. You know you're going on a trip. Did she say you're going to go live with grandma for a little bit and I'll come back to get you?
Yeah, I think she must have said it. I remember just getting care packages every couple of months, and like to this day, you know, I remember Barney was big back then, so I remember getting like this Barney fanny pack, and in there was just like candies, and so she always kept in touch with me, and my grandma was great. You know, she was great to me, so it was a great time for me to be.
So when you were in Ecuador and making that transition, I think, you know, at that point you're still at 5, you're able to be cognizant of your surroundings. So obviously you know that you're not in the surroundings where you were before. What was it like to be a part of the culture that your whole family has come from? What did you remember about that experience?
So I had to transition to Spanish completely. And I think I learned both languages around the same time. I'm more comfortable with English, but at that opportunity, you know, Spanish was the only option that I had. So that's one thing I remember, is just having to speak Spanish, and then also just being, you know, Ecuador back then it was a very poor country. It has progressed since then, but seeing kids that were my age on the street selling gum, selling newspaper, I would see them and just kind of be wondering, like, very different from what I'm seeing in New York.
Right.
Life here seems, you can see the struggle, you can see the people aren't just, changing the clothes daily. They're wearing, the same clothes for 2 days or so.
Right.
So it gave me a little insight to that. And then also, as far as the culture, being able to, 5 o'clock, it was time for a coffee, time to sit down. And so...
Wait, you had coffee?
Yeah. I had coffee.
At 5?
Yeah, I had coffee. So it was, and that might be why, coffee now doesn't do anything to me. And I can have as many cups of coffee and it does not have an effect on me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, but it was about that time, it was like, all right, 5 o'clock, everything, and even during the midday, things would just close down.
Yeah.
Compared to New York City.
Right.
All day long, everything's open.
Right.
And so it was a change of pace.
Yeah.
But also an eye-opening to what's going on.
Because like around noon and stuff, they'll be like, siesta, right?
Yep, in Spain, that's where they do siesta. So in there they do it now. Now they're open all day long too. But back then, it was, they would close down midday and then at 5 o'clock.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the coffee.
Yeah.
At 5 o'clock. So you sit down and have coffee with your grandmother?
Yeah, we sit down and have coffee.
Okay. And how long were you in Ecuador for?
For about 2 years. So I attended kindergarten there.
Okay.
And then I came back up.
In terms of beyond your education that you received in school, tell me about the education that you received with your grandmother and with your family and the things that knowing that your time would be limited in Ecuador. I'm sure she wanted to make sure that you had things inside of you that you would take back with you to America. What were some of the things and the lessons that she imparted to you?
So she was very religious. So church was every Sunday and praying all the time. So that gave me insight into devotion. So that was great. Also, as far as hardworking too, my grandma was still. We would be able to kind of go to like the markets on the weekends and sell like fruit and stuff like that. But during the week, she was able to kind of just give all the attention to me. So I also got that opportunity to kind of just be like,
and you were the only one, the only grandchild.
I was the only grandchild then.
Yeah.
So she had another grandkid, but she was still in New York. My cousin, So
you had all the attention.
I had all the attention, and it was great.
Okay, so all right, so now here you are in Ecuador, having all the attention from your grandmother, and then your mom says, "Okay, I'm going to come back and I'm going to get you." So you make the transition back to Queens. What was that change like? I mean, Andy, in this short amount of time, you have experienced a lot of change. Now you're saying goodbye to Ecuador. You're coming back to Queens. What was that like for you?
The change was difficult. I think, as we mentioned, that as far as why I stay so quiet, it was just me. Each time was just adapting. So I would kind of just sit and watch and observe, but remain quiet. So I did first grade in Queens public school, which again was a very big transition because now it's like a 6-story building with so many kids, and I had trouble speaking up in class and being sent home for so yeah.
Wait, why were you sent home?
Just because I wasn't speaking up, like I wasn't even participating. So I remember one time being sent home for that reason, and I was like, okay.
Normally it's the other way around.
Right.
If you're talking too much.
Right. So yeah, I was very quiet. So yeah.
Wow. Oh boy. That's actually really interesting. I've never heard that before. Right. But I'm thinking about just your whole disposition and the fact that how that might have affected just like your personality because you knew like I just have to roll with it.
Right.
So what were you going to do? You probably just take it all in and internalize it and just say, all right, this is what I need to do. Let me just continue to observe and watch. And I mean, yeah, I'm sure that factors into how you navigate through the world and process.
I think a lot of it, reflecting back on it, I think a lot was the change in the language. You know, while I was learning English and Spanish, then I went, okay, only Spanish.
Right.
And now we're going back to English. I mean, in Queens, thankfully, it was bilingual, but still,
Right.
again, what am I comfortable with? So,
How did I'm always curious for people who are bilingual and how they think about like information. Did you read it in Spanish and then think about it in English? Like, how does that work for you?
For me, it's English. Dominant is
Okay.
English. So thought process is English.
Okay.
You know, I can do the translation, but you know, it's in English.
I love it. I
Yeah.
tell everyone, I'm like, I wish I took 7 years of Spanish, but I realized when I went to Puerto Rico that those 7 years of Spanish means nothing.
Yeah.
Because
in every different country, you know, the
That's
dialect
right.
is different.
Dialect
the
is
speed
different.
is different too. So
speed is so different, and the way that the nuance, things that people just say to one another, you know, on an everyday basis, it's not textbook Spanish. Textbook Spanish is just like the surface. I think you have to actually be around people and understand those little things, right? That allow you to really interact on that deeper level. So, all right, so you're back in Queens, you're in school, you're back to English, you're being sent home because you're being quiet. And all this time, you're taking it all in. And then there's another transition in store, right?
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with a place called Great Barrington.
Right. So at that point, you know, my parents they would separate, then when they get back together, and at this point they're working on each other again and getting back together. So my dad was already in Great Barrington.
Yeah.
He was working at Castle Street Cafe. And so as they were, you know, saying, you know, let's try this again, my mom moved out there.
Yeah.
So again, get on a bus, go to this random place, very small town of Great Barrington.
Whew.
And yeah, we came in, both of us.
So you left Corona, Queens, and you went to Great Barrington.
Yeah.
That must have been a huge transition.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in the city, it's multicultural. And you probably had a community in Corona, Queens, right, that you were familiar with. In Great Barrington, what did you find?
Nothing. It was it was literally a ghost town back then, and there was no Spanish channels, there was no Spanish radios, there was really no Spanish foods.
Set the scene.
available.
What year was this?
95.
All right.
So again, no access to internet, and pretty much as far as, you know,
Right,
as
that's
what
right.
we can do streaming now.
Yeah,
We can just stream the radio, stream the anything we want,
You're right.
pretty much. But back then, it was very quiet, very deserted. It felt like, and you know, we came to start living in apartments, and you know, we didn't have a car, so we were doing public transportation. Again, very limited.
Very limited.
But a big difference between being in New York City with all my family there to it's just the three of us, and then my sister came along, but it was just the three of us in the beginning, so very quiet.
What did you feel during that time? I mean,
Alone. I definitely felt like, you know, I had just been put into a school where I didn't really see myself familiar with my other peers, so I felt definitely alone, and they had already gone through kindergarten and first grade in a cohort, because, you know, back then it's a very small school, so everyone really already knew each other, so I kind of felt like an outsider. So that was a challenge.
how long did it take for you to break in and feel comfortable?
Probably high school.
Really?
It took me a long time. Yeah.
Were you a loner during elementary and middle school?
Yeah. I socialized normally, you know, like I would go to like the birthday parties that they would throw at the bowling alley and whatnot.
Right.
But I never really felt, I'm part of this group. And again, my parents were very strict, you know, they were like, you can't do sleepovers.
Right.
You can't sleep over. You can't go to your friend's house past this time. So it was like, all right, it's hard.
I think there's so I always tell folks too. So my family is Jamaican, and I was born in Jamaica. My family came to this country when I was 2, and I grew up in the Bronx. And there's something about immigrant families and sleepovers because it's like, I don't know them.
Nope. Yep.
They're like, whose house? No.
Nope, exactly. So it had the challenges, like how can I connect with people if I can only see them at school? So at a birthday party once in a while.
Exactly. Yeah. The sleepovers, it was a no. And it was only for people who they really knew. And even then it was like, well, I need to speak with their mother or their father. There was a whole phone thing. I was like, it's not even worth it.
No.
So
I stopped asking after a couple times.
I totally understand. All right. So you have this experience where you go through life and you're in the community, but you don't feel fully a part of it. So what changed in high school? What sparked the difference for you?
In high school, I kind of was able to start being more interactive. I don't know. I just got more of a humor to me. So I started making more jokes. I kind of started becoming a class clown, which allowed me to become more social. And then I also had one of my best friends. He immigrated from Venezuela. And so I found someone that I could speak Spanish to a little bit, but also had that same cultural background. So he helped me break out of my shell.
Okay.
And be able to kind of just, I thought I was cool in high school, so hopefully I was. But kind of just be able to just get through high school. And
Okay. At what point did you notice a change in Great Barrington in terms of the Latino community expanding and growing?
I think in the past 10 years.
Okay.
I think I've seen that dramatic change of seeing them and having even like the Festival Latino that just happened.
That's right.
I didn't know the history of it, but from what I heard was that it started all the way up in Williamstown and it has slowly moved down. It used to be in Lee, but recently it's been in Great Barrington.
That's right.
So again, there's got to be a reason for that.
Now, is there, and we'll get back into the just that journey, but is there an Ecuadorian community that you are a part of now that you found during that time in Great Barrington that has expanded?
No, I can't say I'm part of a community. I am aware of some community members that are from Ecuador, and I'll say hi to them, but not as far as a community base. Yeah.
All right. So at some point, there's some more family transitions going on, and you make your way to Pittsfield.
Right. So my parents, they separated. They realized that, it's better if we just live separately.
Okay.
And they can get along better. And so my mom moved out to Pittsfield, and I went with her. And, I kind of just took over being the man of the house.
How old were you when you...
18.
18.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, you know what? We can do this together, Mom, and my sister too.
Okay.
And so we went ahead to Pittsfield, and since I've been here since then. So 2006.
From switching from Great Barrington to Pittsfield, what were your thoughts about Pittsfield?
That things are open a little later. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot more food options. And things are open a little later, right. And back then the Berkshire Mall was going around, it's up and running. So definitely an opportunity to kind of just be able to just stay up later and have more variety as far and seeing different people too.
Right, because exactly, we're the capital seat of Berkshire County.
Yeah.
So
it was good to experience that.
Nice. At some point, so you're 18, and you had graduated high school, right?
Yep.
So then you were like, all right, I need to take that next step. What was that next step for you?
I went to BCC, and then I had started in criminal justice. Then I did business administration, and then I realized that I don't really know what I'm going to do. So I was like, let me just take all these classes so I can do liberal arts. So once I did that, I was working full time, and thinking back, like as far as us developing, it was, I was the first generation to go to college. And so I didn't really have much of a influence as far as what what steps to take. So I had the support, but not much of influence.
Right.
But so I had the influence of work 9 to 5.
Right.
Work and be able. So I was happy with that. So at the same time I was doing BC, I was working full time. So I was content in what I was doing at that time.
What made you know, being that you mentioned that you had the model of sort of the strong work ethic, and college obviously is another option. What made you decide to do both? Because you could have opted to go the professional route and say, I'm just going to, follow in the path, of my hardworking parents. But what made you want to at least try college?
At that point, I was valuing education a lot. I didn't really know where it was going to take me. But attending the classes was good because it gives you that education that you can't get anywhere else at work. It gives you those tools to be able to do that. And, later on, I continue that education, but I always had a value for it.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So, and the company that you worked for, what was the name of that?
Linked to Life.
Okay.
So it's that button.
Like a medical alert?
Yeah, medical alert button.
Okay.
I remember the commercial where people would fall down and say, help, I can't get up. So I was
It was that?
No, that was Life Alert.
Oh,
It was very similar. And so I was on the call center and answering those calls.
Yep. I remember those commercials. Yep. Yeah. Well, I think, thinking about that strong work ethic, and especially, again, my point of reference to is that immigrant experience, because that's what I saw growing up, and I saw my family work extremely hard. And I think, that desire for, for family members is that the next generation be better, do better, and carry it on for the next folks, who come after. So I think that, in some way, even though your parents did not have that version to show you, they knew that they wanted you to pursue whatever you wanted to be able to make it all worth it. And so you did, right? So you did BCC, you were working at this great company, but at some point, I think you made some more changes.
Yeah, so I was there from like 19 to 24. So I was there for a while, and there was really no advancement in that time. There wasn't that many opportunities, and then the job went remote. They got bought out by a different company, so I was working from home. And so I did it for a year, and I was like, I don't like this at all.
Yeah.
And then again, just the fact that, okay, now I'm 24, I want more.
Yeah.
It was good, but I want to continue more. So I applied for a position in the city.
Right. I got to tell you, when you just mentioned that age, it reminded me of, I'm like double that age now almost. But I remember when I was that age, and there was a book out called The Quarter Life Crisis. And I remember I got this, I was like 24, 25, thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my life? And I'm thinking to myself, now I look back at my 24, 25-year-old self and say, relax, knock it off, stop. It'll all work out. Right. But when you're that age, you think you should have it all mapped out. Right. And if you don't, somehow you think that you failed.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and you don't see, okay, there'll be 30, and then there'll be 40, and then you'll still be going for it.
It will come.
Yep. Yeah, at that age, you don't see it. You're in that stage where, okay, I'm 24, what's next?
And you think you'll always be 24.
Exactly.
So, all right, so you're at this point in your life, and you're like, all right, well, I need to make some changes because I'm not happy. So what did you do? So
I applied for the city, for the health department. It was the nuisance control officer job, which is the entry position there for an inspector to do exterior property maintenance inspections. So going around, sighting tall grass, mattresses, any blight. Again, I didn't really know what I was getting into, but in my interview, I remember clearly saying, I want to grow. I want an opportunity to grow. And the previous director, Gina, she was great during the interview and said, yeah, there'll be opportunities here. You guys just go for it. And she was a big reason why I am where I am now, because she always believed in it and she gave me those opportunities. So.
Wow. Listen, for those listeners who are just tuning in, my guest today is Andy Cambi. And he is the City of Pittsfield's Public Health Director. And he just shared part of his journey of when he actually just started with the city. And he started in the role of Nuisance Control Officer. And obviously, the growth has been exponential. So, I mean, you continue to grow during your time with the city. I mean, you started as a Nuisance Control Officer. And there's something about that interview that you had with Gina, right? The fact that you said, I want to grow. Look at you today, Andy.
Yeah, I know. I put it out there. Yeah, I put it out there.
You put it out there.
Yeah. And it's interesting because now that I've done some interviews, I don't really hear that as much where people are saying, what it is. But for me, like I said, I was very specific. I'm like, I want growth. And I think it might have been just because I had just left my other job with that frustration.
Right.
So I was like, putting it out there.
You put it out there. And I mean, who would have thought that? First of all, I mean, you grew in such a way that, I mean, literally you're looking at someone who your former boss, that you would occupy her position one day.
Yeah. No, it was crazy.
That is crazy. So one, your family must have been so proud of you. Tell me about that reaction when you came home, first of all. I mean, because I want to talk about the role that you're in now, because you have grown through those past roles and you've done your work. But when you went from interim public health director to actually getting the job, what was that like for your family?
Ecstatic. Very proud of me. My mom just, just happy, just really happy. And that made me very happy. And even my dad, him and I, we got to connect later on in life. And even him, he saved the newspaper clipping. and so like, all right, he doesn't talk much either. He doesn't show his feelings. But those moments, he was very proud, very happy. Right. And same with family and friends, they were very happy for me. So, when I reached that point, I was like, wow, like, this is great. Like, this feels good. This feels right. And I'm ready.
It's the embodiment in so many ways of their journey, right? You think back to your parents and all their hard work and everything that they invested in you and all the changes and all the transitions that you went through. Look at you today. I mean, I can only imagine with such pride what your mom might say. Yeah. She says, "Oh, this is my son.
Exactly.
He's the city's public health director."
Right? And then just being in the media all the time and her friends saying, "Oh, I heard your son's name." And
the
so
pride.
She loves it. She loves it. So
yes,
it's great.
Yes. All right. So tell me a little bit about what you love most about your job.
So the fact that with public service in the health department, I have the opportunity to work with our residents who want to, for instance, say they want to open up a restaurant and they come to me and they said, here's my life savings. How can I make this a reality?
Right.
So working with them and bringing that to life and signing off on them opening up a restaurant, those kind of public service actions is what gives me that excitement and that happiness, and then also helping out people that are having issues with public health.
Well, let's talk about that because you see a lot of it. And so some of those challenges, I mean, how do you navigate those things? I mean, because some of them can be complex. So what's your, do you have a specific sort of, in thinking about resolving certain things, what's important for you to do in terms of getting to resolutions?
It's important to put myself in their positions. Whether it's a tenant or anybody that's experiencing something, I try to put myself in their shoes and say, how can I talk to this person in a way that, would make sense and explain to them, whether it's the process that I need to explain to them or the end goal of what we need to do. Is just kind of putting themselves and having that compassion to say, I understand.
Right.
And though I can't fix it overnight, I'm going to do my best to fix this problem as soon as I can.
Right. Do you think that position, because it definitely disarms folks. I think sometimes people, I know from even like the mayor's office, people will call, and if they're at 10, you know, my sole purpose is to help them, you know, one, understand I'm here to help. And so sometimes when you don't respond in that way, people, they realize, all right, this person wants to help me. And then they're like, okay, then they start to listen. And that compassionate perspective, I think, is so important, because sometimes people don't think that people understand. And they think that, what would you know? Like, what would you know about my circumstance or situation, right? And so they come to it with that thought process. And so having someone say, listen, I get it. You know, I'm going to do everything that I can to help. That it might not fix the situation, but it makes them feel heard in some way.
So,
what are some things that you know what, before I get into that, I'd like to know about your work during the pandemic and even coming out of it, because I feel like you were able to be a part of that process for you. And that was a huge thing for our city.
It was huge. Globally, it was huge. And I was part of the enforcement part, which was challenging, navigating through those constant changes in the rules and regulations of what can and not be, what can be done and what can't be done, and understanding them. So that was my role throughout the pandemic. And at that time, Gina, the director, she was more of the public health side and attending all those emergency meetings. So that was my role.
Did you have any takeaways or lessons from that time that have stayed with you?
Collaboration. It helped a lot with our city. A lot of people stepped up, and they did it out of their willingness of their heart. You know, they didn't do it for a paycheck. They were literally there volunteering, assisting with the vaccine clinics. This thing, you know, Gina worked endless hours again.
Yeah, she did.
For her. She had a role and she had a responsibility, and she took on that responsibility.
You touched on an important point about collaboration, and you coming from New York City as well, and having that. I know it's been a while, but I will tell you that level of just people working together, the bigger the city, it's harder because people don't always know their neighbors. They don't know neighboring organizations in the way that we know them here.
Right.
And I think, you know, we sometimes take it for granted, the level and depth of collaboration we have here, not only in the city of Pittsfield, but also through Berkshire County. It's not, this is not, people don't do it like this everywhere.
No. I mean, and you could see those issues during the pandemic where people were not working together.
They were not.
And the numbers were crazy and the deaths were crazy. It's because, again, the community wasn't working together. But, you know, for the city and the county, we did pretty well. We came together and we worked through it.
So tell me, what are some of your some of the things that you'd like to do as part of your role in terms of just strengthening community relationships, or maybe some new initiatives?
Right now, it's been growing the team. I've been able to hire some new people, and that's been great because they come with a lot of experience. So being able to expand those services, public health services, pretty much doing community outreach, that's going to be a big thing for 2023. It was originally going to be a big thing for 2022, but I realized that the team needs to catch up first, and then now they're ready, and now they're like, okay, like, let's get going. I'm like, okay, well, we have to wait for budget season, and then we have to work from there, but we have big plans for community outreach. You know, we want to be a health department that is everywhere and anywhere, you know, at the point where we're providing you that public health knowledge to better yourself and to be living healthy. And so that's the main goal.
How would you describe your leadership style?
I would say that my leadership style would be that I am very involved in hearing people's ideas. You know, I listen to what they have, because people have a lot of knowledge, you know, especially me being younger. So, and most of my coworkers are a little more experienced and have a lot more just knowledge. So, I listen to them. And they're, you know, for instance, our public health nurse, she has a lot of knowledge. And so my leadership style is not saying, hey, I'm your boss or not. It's more like, what goal can we achieve together? And collaborating with her to do that.
Okay.
So that would say my leadership is just kind of being able to have that grasp of a team.
I'm going to do a tie-in now back to little Andy.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were able to weather so much change and you took it all in. Do you think that ability to adapt and also listen, I mean, you had to observe a lot, and I don't know if you spoke a lot during that time when you're observing, but you kind of knew that you had to go with the flow. Taking the disposition of little Andy and then thinking about who you are today, have you brought him along with you?
Of course. Yeah, definitely all the observation, because when it comes time to take care of what I need to do, I just go with it. I know I've already observed what needs to happen, so that will just come out naturally.
Okay.
So yeah, it definitely has helped. And, I remember attending my first city council meeting. What did I do? I would be watching the city council meetings beforehand when Gina would attend and just preparing myself. And so when it was time, I can comfortably go to a city council meeting and be able to just be there. And so. Okay.
And in terms of strengthening or fostering deeper outreach with members of our Latino community in Pittsfield, do you have any ideas for that?
Yeah, so I want to, something that I want to work on myself is to become more in touch with the Latino community. Okay. So I need to start collaborating and start reaching out to these big organizations and maybe volunteer sometime.
Okay.
And get that relationship going. So that's an initiative, not just professionally, but personally.
Okay.
And from there, seeing, how can we help out?
Okay. All right. Perfect. So, I mean, obviously, it seems like work is going great for you. Professional development wise, what are some ways that you sort of stay on top of the trends in terms of public health or just in your field?
So I had the opportunity to do MCLA as I was going through the steps of getting my new positions.
Yep.
And so I did the leadership in business, the cohort that was in the Pittsfield office, which was great because it was accessible.
Okay.
It was manageable with my work schedule. The faculty was great. So I did that. It took like 2.5 years. But that was a big opportunity where I had to the knowledge of growing as far as leadership and business. For public health, we attend, seminars all the time. We have our yearly seminar that we have. It's 3 days long and just up to date with all the Board of Health throughout the state.
Yeah.
And now we actually have phone-in calls that started during the pandemic. And they continue. So in those opportunities where all the boards of health just call into a call, we get to discuss things that are trending, and so.
And that was something that they hadn't
done that before. And they see the value of it even after, it was big during the pandemic, but now continuing because every season is different. So
that's right. Are there some things that we should be on the lookout for? I'm just putting on my resident, constituent hat right now.
I mean, just as we're getting into flu season, that's one of the things. As far as the next pandemic, I don't know, but we will be prepared for it, and we'll get through it.
Okay, thank you. To my listeners who are just tuning in, my guest today is Andy Cambi, the City of Pittsfield's Public Health Director. So, Andy, obviously work is going fantastic for you. Your professional journey is it's amazing. You've done so many great things. But we cannot just work. We must have an outlet. So, what do you like to do in your spare time?
So when I was 24, I bought my first house, which was great.
Wow.
And it was a fixer-upper. So I had to learn how to fix things.
You did it yourself?
Yep. YouTube is my friend, and just observing again, and then just being able to do repairs. So I remodeled the whole kitchen, bathrooms,
By
floors.
yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I would hire some friends to help me with the heavy lifting and stuff like that. But for the most part, it would be just me taking care of this.
Really?
area. So, and I found like a passion for it. I found a passion for, as years change, now I want this. Now I want these colored planks on the wall now, or I want this different color floor now and tile. And so, I guess that would be my outlet and what I do in my spare time.
So do you help other people with your home?
Exactly. Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So my friend will have just bought a new house, and then I'll be like, I can help you. This is what you should do. This is what again, just giving them that insightful eye that I like to do, because I can spend hours just watching these videos on how to do things.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
See, I can watch the videos as well, but see, there's a disconnect between watching the videos and actually doing it.
Right.
But I don't know if I trust myself enough to do a full remodel.
Right. Yeah. There's some things I leave to the professionals, but for the most part, it's great to just be able to like change a whole floor out and take out the old carpet, and then do like a vinyl planking on it. So it's good.
Yeah. I will live vicariously through your experience, Andy. But that's impressive. 24, bought a fixer-upper. The house is to your liking now?
Yeah. It's great. And then I'll update it every once in a while. In a couple of years, I'll do some updates to it.
Have you ever thought about getting into like real estate and buying homes and doing that? And
I have thought about it, but...
I mean, you'd keep your costs down because you do everything yourself.
Yeah, I think for that I would need more of a team. Yeah. So maybe in the future.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. And what else do you like to do?
Travel. Travel's been big.
Okay.
Since I turned 30, I got my mom and sister gave me a trip to Greece.
Oh, really?
Yep. And so.
Where in Greece?
So I did Athens and Santorini.
Okay.
So it was amazing.
Okay.
It was just, to this day, I still can think about the food that I had there. The calamari, I always talk to people about. So I got an opportunity to go there with a couple of friends, and then through knowing some friends, they would be like, oh, I'm going to Iceland. I'm like, okay, I'll come along with you.
Right.
Or I'm going to Guatemala, I'll come with you.
Right.
And then obviously, also like Cancun and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But those are more like resort. But, for instance, like Iceland was really great because I went ahead a day earlier, and you're arriving there at 5 a.m. The signs are all in this different language.
Yeah.
Renting a car and then just looking for the waterfalls, and the fact of traveling really, I like it.
Now I've known a couple of folks who have gone to Iceland, and it's intriguing to me, and actually it's on my list of places to go. But to prepare for Iceland, did you have to buy a really warm parka and like pack really warm clothes? And what was your itinerary like? I mean,
I should have packed a lot of more warmer clothes, but I didn't. But I just rolled with it. So I had like a jacket and like a sweater under. But it's
in Iceland.
In Iceland, yeah. Well, I was packing late. And so, but the first day, I went to see, there's this plane that's like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So that was my day. But it was like a 2-hour hike through like just sandy, like black sand.
Really?
Territory. I mean, you got a bunch of people all going to the same destination, but I just remember coming back and I was soaked. So I was not fully prepared, so definitely.
So what was the temps like? I mean...
I did it in November, so they were probably around 20, 30. Yeah. So it was cool.
Did you go to, I've also seen people, like, they go to, like, a hot springs.
Yep, the Blue Lagoon. I did that. Yeah. That was a great experience.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the color, you can't describe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So.
Okay.
Definitely recommend going there. It's a pretty short trip, too. Out of Boston, it was a quick trip.
Really? How many hours?
I don't remember off, but it was like probably less than 4.
Oh, that's not bad.
Not too bad, yeah.
Yeah, we just went to Ghana this summer, and that was like 10 hours.
Yeah. as can be.
Yeah, but the flight wasn't that bad. But I think that there's, traveling, it's pretty awesome because you're able to leave your surroundings, and it does offer another perspective, and for those who can, definitely traveling is an eye-opener. And it shows you just different cultures, and it really is amazing. And there's something about getting your passport stamped.
Right. Yeah. I love it. I think I didn't like when I had to renew it because I was like, can I take these pages with me? But I didn't. Yeah. So I saved it.
Yeah. Nice. All right. All right. Perfect, Andy. So we are, we're getting close to the end, but we still have a few questions. And I think, with the journey that you have had so many people in your life who have imparted so many different things to you. So I don't know if there's going to be a singular person for this question, but feel free to elaborate. Who or what inspires you?
My mom is definitely 100% on the top of the list. And then second, I would be my dad. As I mentioned, I got an opportunity to get closer to him. As I grew older, I began to understand him more. And so now he continues, he inspires me now, to continue knowing that he's proud and continue to do that. So those are the two main people that inspire me and motivate me to keep going the path that I am and making sure that I continue to make them proud.
Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
Here still.
Okay.
Yeah, I've thought about.
Good answer.
I've thought about leaving. I've thought about it, but honestly, we're here and we can take a train. We can take the car. 2 hours. We're in Boston. 2.5 hours. We're in New York City. So it's like we get the best of it. And right now I don't really adapt in the city anymore.
Yeah.
Like I want to come home.
Listen, let's just talk about that for a quick second. I remember when I was in the city and I would, there was always something to do. That energy, that pulse was just so hypnotic. And then over time, you get to relish peace and you relish quiet, and the things that you gravitated to, you're like, I can't even because I still have some friends who live in the city, and so I go down, every so often, and I find that I'm like, all right, I'm good. I'm ready to come back. And it's I guess it's just life, right? It's just life.
We've got to adjust to, but and that's my plan, is to stay here, continue. As far as me professionally, I do want to make an impact. I don't know what exactly that would be yet. I know it's going to take time, but I do want to make an impact. With all the, because I'm still young and I still have a lot of time to do that. So that's my goal.
Well, if I could say something about that, I mean, the fact that you are in this role, you are making an impact. There are probably people who are watching you that you don't even know. Right? There are people who see you and are inspired by you and are proud of you that you don't even know. So when I think about impact, there's the impact that that you have made, and then the impact that you'll never know. Right?
Exactly.
So, I think that speaks to your story. I think that's a great goal. And I go back to that conversation that you had with Gina, where you said, I want to grow. So I guess the conversation that you're having with me, saying I want to make an impact, it'll be interesting to see years down the road what that looks like, especially in the city of Pittsfield.
I'm very excited for it.
And if you had to choose one word to describe yourself, what would it be? And you can elaborate. You can, because we have a little bit of time.
I would say calm and easygoing. I remain calm in the stressful situations, and easygoing as far as letting those bad days kind of just be like, okay, tomorrow's another day. So, those are the words that I would say would describe me and has helped me to get where I am now. So, yeah.
And on those bad days, when you do have them, how do you process them?
Knowing that there's things that we can't change. All we can do is accept them and process it, whether it's something that would hurt us or anything like that, but just accepting those feelings and then picking yourself up the next day and just being able to say, okay, I can't control certain things, but I can make the best of myself.
Okay. All right. Well, you heard it here first. Andy, it's been a pleasure. I so relished having the opportunity to speak with you and to learn more about your story. And you have such a wonderful story.
Thank you.
Such a wonderful story, but just learning about, I guess, your journey from that little child to who you are today. I look forward to seeing your continued work, and I look forward to seeing the impact that you will make within the city of Pittsfield and throughout Berkshire County. All right, folks, you've been listening to Backstory. Let's hear it on WTBR-FM Pittsfield with Roberta McCulloch-Dews of the Mayor's Office in the city of Pittsfield. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and have a great day.